guys, welcome to this live. My name is Berlyn and we do lives about the Bible. We read the Bible in every live, so in that way we can learn more about the Word of God. And yeah, so in case that any false prophet comes around and they want to tell us things about the Bible, or even say, oh, this is true about the Bible, you're prepared, you're ready to defend the Word of God, defend the truth, to care, because we have to care about the truth because Jesus Christ is the truth. So in this live, this is the third live in this channel. We're gonna be reading in the lives we read the Bible from the beginning to the end. So it's like if you want to read a regular book and you open the book and you start reading it from the middle, you're not gonna understand it, right? So that's why we do these lives and we read the Bible from the beginning to the end. So the first live we read about Genesis 1, which is about the creation of the world, and then in the second live, we read about Genesis chapter 2, which is about Adam and Eve. I recommend you guys to go and check those videos because in that way you're going to be understanding more. If you're not familiarized with the Bible or with any of these stories, I recommend you watching the first and the second live and so on. So in that way you can understand, because we have to read it from the beginning to the end. So in that way we can understand it. Obviously, once you're done with the Bible, once you're done reading it, the whole Bible, you can start reading let's say, I want to read this book now. Or you can open it from the middle and then read about something else. But I recommend you, if it's the first time, to read it from the beginning to the end. So in that way you're more, you learn more and you don't get confused, So we're not going to be reading by chapters, even though I know it looks like we're reading by chapters, because in the first live we read chapter 1, and the second one we read chapter 2, and then in this one, chapter 2 and chapter 3, and then in this one we are reading chapter 4. So we read by stories. So the first story is the creation of the world, which happened to be in chapter 1. And then the second story is Adam and Eve, which happened to be, that one is in chapter 2 and chapter 3. And then this one is Cain and Abel, the two sons of Adam and Eve. And I know a lot of us already know this story. So this one happened to be in chapter 4. Just chapter 4. So we're going to be reading chapter 4 in this live. In some lives, we're going to be reading more chapters than in others. So for example, when we get to Noah's Ark, we're going to be reading more, which is coming next. In 2 more lives, we're going to be reading about Noah's Ark. So stay tuned for that because it's very interesting. All these stories are very interesting and we learn a lot. So like I said, we're going to start reading chapter 4 in this live, and it's the story about Cain and Abel. So, yeah, let's start reading it. It's going to be chapter 4. Chapter 4, verse 1. So it says, Adam knew Eve, his wife. It says, Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. This is very interesting, because it says that Adam knew Eve, his wife. So when you know someone, you're never gonna know someone fully until you have sexual intercourse with them. So knowing someone fully, all the way, is by being intimate with them. It's by having sexual intercourse with them. So it says that Adam knew his wife Eve, and then she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. So this is very important to take in account, because when you know someone, it's when you know them fully, is when you have this sexual relationship with them. And yeah, this mostly happens and has to happen when you're married, right? Because if you have sexual relationships with someone, or sexual intercourse with someone that it's not your husband or your wife, it's called fornication. So that's not good. And also, like in case you're married and you have sexual intercourse with someone that's not your wife or your husband, that's called adultery, which is also not good at all. So yeah. So it says, Eve became pregnant and she gave birth to Cain. So Cain is the firstborn. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. So Abel was the youngest. Now Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborns of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry and his face was downcast. So for a long time, I was wondering, and I was like, why if Cain and Abel brought offerings to God, why did God chose or like looked in favor more towards Abel than towards Cain? I was reading this verse always, and I was like, I don't understand it. Like, why would he think that Abel's offering was better than Cain's offering, right? So after reading the whole Bible, like that's why I tell you guys that you have to read the whole Bible to be able to understand more. I came back to this verse and I was like, oh, I get it now. Well, because when we give offerings to God, we have to give the best of the best, the best of the best. There's even one story in the New Testament where there's people who are giving money, I believe, I don't know exactly how it goes, but this is the story, that people are giving money to the temple, I believe. And then there's a lot of rich people giving like, let's say $1 million, right? $1 million to the temple. And then there's a poor lady, like a homeless lady, who gives like 10 cents to the temple. And then Jesus says to the apostles, he's like, do you know that the lady's offering is more valued than the rich people offerings? And they're like, why? And Jesus is like, because the rich people, they have a lot of money, so they give $1 million, right? But this is just like the extra money that they had. It's like, we have this left, let's give this to the temple. But the poor lady, the homeless lady, the 10 cents that she gave was everything that she had. So God always looks at our heart and our intention in giving things to them. That's why the offering that Abel gave to God was more powerful to God than what Cain gave him. So let's read this again so you know what's the difference between both offerings, because there's a huge difference. So it says that Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil, right? In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. So it says that Cain, from the fruit of the soil, he brought an offering to God, but it was some of the fruit of the soil, some of the fruit, And Abel also brought an offering, but the difference was that Abel didn't bring like just any animal. He brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. So the offering that Abel gave to God was the best of the best, was the best animals and the firstborn, fat portions of them, right? And Cain brought just like some of the fruit. Like probably he kept the best fruit for him, and then he was like, oh, let me give this to God as an offering, like this extra fruit. So that's the difference. And it says, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, you will not be accepted, And then here comes the most powerful verse that I like about Genesis. Well, I like many, right? But this is very pretty, well, very powerful in this case. It says, "Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, you will not be accepted. But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." This is so powerful because God says, like, sin is like knocking on your door, and it says it desires to have you, but you must rule over it. We must rule over sin. And this happened to me like last week, and I remember this verse. So I was about to read the Bible and pray, but I was like, okay, let me check my phone first. And I don't know if you guys do the same thing, but like for me, if I check my phone at the end, I spend like 2 hours on it, like on TikTok and watching a lot of things that just don't make sense. It's just a lot of like trash, right? It's like when we're supposed to give our body vegetables and eat healthy, and we give our body like chips and like things that are not healthy. It's the same thing with like watching things. If you watch a lot of things that don't make sense on TikTok, YouTube, Netflix, and you don't like give healthy stuff to your body, to your eyes, which is like reading the Bible, praying more, you're gonna get sick, like spiritually sick. So I was about to grab my phone, like just to check something on TikTok, and I was like, no, I didn't even turn it on. I was like, no, because it's almost like a thing that you have, right? So I put it down, and then that verse came to my mind. My God talked to me, and he was like, sin is knocking at your door, and it desires to have you, but you must rule over it. So I was like, I'm gonna rule over this, and I was like, I'm gonna put it back, and then just focus on reading the Bible and praying, right? So yeah, it says, "Now Cain said to his brother Abel, 'Let's go out to the field.' While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him." So because of this, Cain killed Abel, right? And it says, "Then the Lord said to Cain, 'Where is your brother Abel?' And then Cain said, 'I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?' And the Lord said, 'What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you're under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its corpse. It will no longer yield its corpse for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth.'" So like a vampire. A lot of people think that because it says that you will be restless and wanderer on the earth. A lot of people believe that probably Cain is still alive and he's like a vampire. I don't know why a vampire, because probably vampires are restless and wanderer on the earth. But that's like a myth that people say. But I don't know. A lot of people think that he's still alive. So I don't know, because after this, you don't see, obviously Cain is like mentioned, but you don't see what happened to him after all of this, you know? So it says, "Cain said to the Lord, 'My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me.'" That's what Cain told the Lord. So the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain," "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times. Vengeance. Do you pronounce vegans or vegans? Well, it says that they will suffer vengeance seven times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain. So God put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So this is why a lot of people think that he's a vampire, things like that. But this is why a lot of people believe that he's still alive, because God said, no one can kill you. And he even put a mark on Cain so that anyone who finds him will not kill him. In this case would be like animals, like lions or things like that. Because the only humans that were on the earth was Adam, Eve, and then Cain, right? And it says, so Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, which is the east of Eden. And Cain made love to his wife. So to his wife, Cain got married, because Adam and Eve, obviously when you see the stories in the Bible, they don't mention the women, like the daughters. So in this case, they mention more like the firstborns or all the male sons that they have. You can see this in the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 kids of Israel. He had 13 in total, and one of them was a girl. But the 12 tribes, it's just the 12 tribes because they just count the 12 boys, the 12 sons. They don't count the women, the woman. So yeah. So in this case, it was 13 sons of Israel, but a lot of us just know them as the 12 tribes because of the men, right? So in this case, God didn't mention any sons or daughters that they had. Obviously, we're going to see that at the end, he's like, oh, and they had other sons and daughters. But he doesn't like mention their names. So Cain's wife, it's one of his sisters, right? At the beginning, they had to marry like that. They had to like marry one of their sisters, their cousins, because they had to multiply in the earth. But later on, we're going to see this in like lives that we read more and more, and so like in the future, guys. But at the end, God is like, okay, now you're not going to be able to marry one of your sisters, your brother-in-law, because some people cheat on each other, brother-in-law, cousins, aunts, things like that. So but at the beginning they had to, because they had to multiply. So it says, Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. So now Enoch, it's very important. Enoch it's Cain's son, but we have to like take a pause here, because there's a prophet that's very famous, which is Enoch, the book of Enoch, and he walked with God. We're gonna talk about him in the next live. But Enoch is the great grandpa of Noah. So, but this is not the same Enoch. Even though they have the same name, it's not the same Enoch. There's another Enoch who is a prophet who descends from the third son of Adam and Eve. It's not in this one. So Adam and Eve, they're going to have another son, a third son, which is Seth. So Enoch descends from Seth, not from Cain. So there's two Enochs, right? So this is not that one. And it says, Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. So Enoch was born Irid. So Enoch was born, to Enoch was born Irid. So Enoch had a son named Irid. And Irid was the father of oh my gosh, how do you pronounce it? I'm sorry. Mehujael. And Mehujael was the father of Methuselah. And Methuselah was the father of Lamech. Lamech married two women. So these names are so familiar to me, because we're going to see in the next live the same names for the descendants of the third son of Adam and Eve, which is Seth. They kind of named their kids similar, right? And I'm sorry, guys. I apologize if I don't know how to pronounce these names. I read the Bible. I also have lives in Spanish. So my first language, is that how you say it? Yeah, it's Spanish. So English is my second language. So I read the Bible also in Spanish in my other channel, which is Berlyn as well. I have it in this channel attached to it. If you go to channels, you're gonna see it. And yeah, if you guys know anyone who speaks Spanish and they don't understand English, you can send them to that channel, because I do everything on that side in Spanish. Or if you guys know English and Spanish, if you're bilingual, you can go and check it out as well. So it says that Lamech married Lamech, who is one of the descendants of Cain, he married 2 women. One was named Ada and the other one was named Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who lived in tents and raised livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who played strings, instruments, and pipes. Zillah also had a son, she named Tubal Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal Cain's sister was Naimah. Lamech said to his wife. So okay, this is just like a summary of what their descendants were. But anyways, it says that Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to me. He said to them, listen to me, wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times will be avenged. So yeah, that's what he said here. And then from here we go back. This is all we know about Cain's descendants and about Cain's like family line. After that, that's everything. We're gonna see that some of the prophets or some of the people like in the Bible, if we keep reading it, they're gonna be mentioning Cain, like even in the New Testament. But that's it. Like they're just gonna mention him. But actually, like for us to know what happened to his family line, we don't know. We just know this part. That's it. So we don't know when he died, because in the next slide we're gonna see how many years that Adam lived and when did he died, how old was he when he died, how old was Seth when he died, and so on. So God never mentions what age that Cain died. So that's why there's this wonder of us like not knowing if he still lives or things like that, you know. So in chapter 4 verse 25 it says, Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth. So they have a third son, a male, which they named him Seth. And they said, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son. So like Eve was very happy because she was like, oh, I have Seth, I have another child who God granted me because of Abel, because I've lost Abel. And it says, Seth also had a son and he named him Enosh. At that time, people began to call on the name of the Lord. So yeah, guys, that's everything. That's everything for chapter 4. We ended in Adam and Eve, who had another son named Seth. So that's everything for this live. We're gonna be reading chapter 4 and next live, and it's gonna be about Noah. We're gonna be reading how many years did Adam lived. And then also we're going to be knowing if Noah got to meet Adam. Because back then they used to live 1,000 years. You know, like nowadays we live like 90 years. And if we're lucky, we live 90 years. So back then they used to live 1,000 years or things like that. Like 900 years, 1,000 years. So we're going to see if Adam lived for so long, did he get to meet Noah? Because Noah is his great grandson. So we're gonna figure that out in the next live, which is very interesting. Imagine like if you're Noah or if you're Enoch and you're like, wow, I know Adam because he's still alive. Like I know the first man, the one who like was in the Garden of Eden, who took a bite of the forbidden fruit. This is going to be very interesting. I mean, I feel that it's very cool, right? But anyways, we're going to see in the next live if they get to like know each other, Adam and Noah, which that would be very cool. I know the answer because I already read it for you guys, but you're going to know it in the next live. So stay tuned for that. And thank you guys for watching this live. If you like it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe and click on the notification bell, so that you know every time I do another live or I upload another video. Also, you can comment me anything down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. God bless you and I love you all. Bye.